There is a single principle, buried in the rules of world trade, that quietly decides who every country on earth is allowed to do business with, and on what terms. You have never heard its plain name, yet it shaped the price of almost everything you own. It sounds boring, even bureaucratic. But withdraw it from one country, and you can strangle an entire economy without firing a shot. Stay with me, because the strangest thing about this rule is who it was really designed to protect, and I've saved that for the end. The principle has an odd name, most favored nation. It sounds like special treatment, but it means almost the opposite. Under this rule, if a country offers one trading partner a good deal, a low tariff, an open door, it must offer that same deal to every other member of the system. You cannot play favorites. The best terms you give anyone, you must give to all. Why build trade on that? Because the alternative is a tangle. Imagine every pair of countries haggling its own private tariffs, a different price to trade with each neighbor, thousands of separate deals, endlessly renegotiated, ripe for bullying and revenge. Most favored nation collapses that chaos into one shared standard. Cut a tariff once and it ripples out to everyone automatically. It is the rule that made global trade scalable. Follow what happens when one country lowers a tariff. Under the rule, that lower rate does not stay a private favor. It must extend automatically to every other member. So a single concession spreads outward across the whole network, nation to nation, until a deal struck between two countries has quietly cut costs for all of them. Trade barriers fall not one at a time, but in cascades. This principle sits at the heart of the body that referees world trade. Born as an agreement in 1947 and rebuilt as the World Trade Organization in 1995, it turned most favored nation into a binding promise among most of the planet's economies. For the first time, trade had not just deals but rules and a code to enforce them, however imperfectly. But here is where the boring rule grows teeth. If belonging to the system means getting everyone's best terms, then being expelled from it is devastating. Strip a country of most favored nation status, and overnight its exports face the highest tariffs, its goods priced out of markets it depended on. The same rule that lifts everyone becomes, in reverse, a way to isolate and punish one. So imagine the rules simply vanished. Trade would not stop, but it would fracture. Powerful nations would carve the world into blocks, dictating terms to the weak, rewarding friends and squeezing enemies, deal by deal. Small countries, with nothing to bargain, would be at the mercy of the large. The quiet miracle of the rule is that it gives even a tiny nation the same baseline as a giant. And here is the uncomfortable present. That system is fraying. The great powers increasingly ignore the shared rules when it suits them, striking private deals, slapping on tariffs, and sidelining the very code meant to enforce fairness. The scaffolding that made trade predictable for decades is being quietly dismantled, and what replaces it looks more like the pre-war tangle it was built to end. Now the strange truth about who this really protected, it was never mainly for the strong. The strong can always cut their own deals. It was the shield of the weak, the guarantee that a small country could trade on the same terms as a superpower. When the rule erodes, it is not the giants who lose the most. It is everyone who was never big enough to bully. Which reframes what free trade even is. It was never just the absence of barriers. It was a shared agreement to treat everyone by the same rule, so that commerce ran on law instead of raw power. Take away the rule, and trade does not become freer. It becomes a contest. The strongest always wins. So here is what I saved. The most powerful clause in world trade was designed, above all, to protect the countries with the least power, by promising them the same terms as everyone else. One rule decides who the world is allowed to trade with, and being cut from it can strangle a nation, precisely because it was the small who needed it most.